What if I told you that using your usual copper sulfate for full garden treatment is like relying on a steam engine in the era of electric vehicles? Yes, it gets the job done, but there are methods, dozens, even hundreds of times more effective. Today, we'll definitively show why Bordeaux, mixture and concentrated urea are a thing of the past. And I'll show you what to use instead, so your garden welcomes spring absolutely healthy. Every autumn, millions of gardeners worldwide gear up for battle against fungi, lichens, and overwintering pests. Their arsenal typically includes what they consider time-tested solutions: copper sulfate, iron sulfate, and Bordeaux mixture. This tradition of blue spraying has been passed down through generations. The noble objective, an eradicating treatment designed to burn out or eliminate all harmful pathogens that have taken refuge in the tree bark for the winter. But how effective is this scorched earth approach truly? So let's delve deeper. What's the core, fundamental problem with these traditional methods, with what I call the old guard approach? Why am I so confident in declaring that Bordeaux, mixture and copper sulfate are a thing of the past? It all comes down to one simple word: contact. These are contact action treatments. What exactly does that mean? Imagine you're painting a fence. The paint covers the surface, creating a protective layer. Copper sulfate works in precisely the same way. It forms a thin, bluish film on the tree bark. This film does indeed kill fungal spores that land on it. Sounds pretty good, right? On the surface, it all makes perfect sense. We've covered the tree with a protective shield, and the enemy won't get through. But, as always, the devil is in the details. This shield is incredibly vulnerable. Let one good autumn rain hit, and a significant portion of your protection is simply washed away into the soil. And what about those areas you physically couldn't reach with your sprayer? Tiny cracks in the bark, spots under peeling scales, the crevices where buds meet branches. All these hidden nooks and crannies are left completely exposed. It's like trying to lock your house while leaving all the windows wide open. You're only creating a false sense of security while the main threat calmly bides its time, sheltered in its hiding place. But what's truly happening beneath the bark while we're busy admiring that beautiful blue film? Underneath, a hidden world is bustling with activity. The pathogens responsible for the most dangerous diseases, Scab, Moniliosis, cocamycosis, are far from unintelligent. They don't just sit out in the open, patiently waiting to be washed away by a copper solution. Instead, they seek out perfect winter hideouts. Microscopic cracks in the bark, tiny wounds, the areas surrounding buds. These become their secure havens. The fungal mycelium penetrates deep into the plant's tissues, where it safely overwinters. Copper sulfate, as we know, merely rests on the surface. It simply cannot physically penetrate these hidden sanctuaries. It's akin to trying to wash your hands without removing thick, dirty gloves. You can pour as much soapy water on them as you like, but the dirt beneath the gloves will remain untouched. It's the same principle here. You diligently spray the tree, yet the main enemy sits securely in its bunker beneath the bark, simply biding its time for the warmth of spring to unleash its destructive work. For them, all our painstaking treatment is nothing more than a minor autumn shower. Okay, you might be wondering about the popular folk method of treating plants with a concentrated urea solution. This approach is often touted as a two-in-one solution, both a fungicide and a nitrogen fertilizer. While it sounds tempting, there are some serious drawbacks. Yes, a high concentration of urea can indeed burn off some overwintering fungi and even the egg masses of certain pests. The word burn is key here. This solution essentially acts as a chemical burn. However, its effectiveness, first and foremost, largely depends on the weather. It performs better in dry conditions and much less effectively when it's damp. Secondly, and most importantly, such a concentrated solution is a massive stressor for the plant itself. Trees are preparing for winter dormancy, slowing down all their processes, and we're essentially dousing them with boiling water at that critical time. Furthermore, the nitrogen in urea can prematurely stimulate bud development or delay the hardening off process of the wood. As a result, the bark becomes more vulnerable to frost, potentially leading to frost cracks and other damage. So, in an attempt to solve one problem, we risk creating another, equally serious one. But there's another, often overlooked threat that many gardeners don't even consider. It's the cumulative effect. Copper, after all, is a heavy metal. While plants do need it in trace amounts, the sheer volume we douse our gardens with every fall and spring is an entirely different matter. Year after year, you apply these blue-tinted copper sprays. Some of this copper washes off with the rain, some flakes away with old bark. Where does it all go? Straight into the soil beneath your trees, of course, and there it stays, accumulating. Year after year, its concentration steadily climbs. What happens then? Excess copper begins to suppress the vital soil microflora, those beneficial bacteria and fungi that help nourish roots and protect them from disease. The soil becomes less alive, less vibrant, and once it reaches a critical concentration, copper becomes directly toxic to the plants themselves, stunting their growth and development. So, in our earnest desire to protect our gardens, we are slowly but surely poisoning the very ground they grow in. It's a ticking time bomb we're planting right beneath our own harvest. Now let's talk about ferrous sulfate. Many gardeners absolutely love it and often use it in the fall, especially to combat mosses and lichens on tree trunks. And sure enough, after treatment with ferrous sulfate, mosses do blacken and fall off. It certainly seems like the product works perfectly. However, it's crucial to understand its actual purpose. Ferrous sulfate is, first and foremost, a readily available source of iron for plants. In other words, it's a micronutrient fertilizer. Its fungicidal or antifungal properties are actually very, very weak. Against serious diseases like apple scab, manilial blight, or fruit rot, it's practically powerless. Using it as a primary, eradicating treatment is like trying to cure pneumonia with a vitamin C tablet. Yes, you might see some benefit, but you won't actually tackle the root problem. Addressing mosses is, frankly, more of a cosmetic effect. After all, moss itself doesn't actually cause direct harm to the tree. However, the fungal spores and pests overwintering beneath the moss, they're the real threat, and ferrous sulfate simply isn't equipped to handle them. Let's talk about ferrous sulfate. Many gardeners are big fans of it, especially for autumn applications to combat moss and lichens on tree trunks. And indeed, after treatment with ferrous sulfate, mosses blacken and fall off. It really seems like an excellent solution. However, it's crucial to understand its true purpose. Ferrous sulfate is, first and foremost, a readily available source of iron for plants, essentially a micronutrient fertilizer. Its fungicidal or antifungal properties, however, are very, very weak. Against serious diseases like apple scab, brown rot, or fruit rot, it's practically powerless. Using it as a primary treatment for eradicating these issues is like trying to cure pneumonia with a vitamin C tablet. While there might be some minor benefit, you won't tackle the core problem. Treating moss is more of a cosmetic effect, as moss itself doesn't directly harm the tree. The real threat comes from fungal spores and pests overwintering beneath it, and ferrous sulfate simply isn't equipped to deal with them. It's precisely against the backdrop of these traditional methods' limitations that modern agrochemical science takes centre stage. And I'm not referring to some prohibitively expensive, hard-to-find exotic solution. I'm talking about products you can find on the shelves of any garden centre. Our focus today will be on systemic fungicides. So, what exactly makes these so special? And why are they vastly superior to contact-based treatments? Commit this word to memory. Systemic. If a contact treatment works externally, much like paint on a fence, a systemic one operates from within. It penetrates deep into the plant's tissues, spreading throughout its entire vascular system, along every sap-conducting pathway. This fundamental difference is a complete game changer. For a significant period, the treatment literally becomes an integral part of the plant itself. It reaches places you could never access with a sprayer. It doesn't merely act on the surface. It works within all the tree's tissues, building protection from the inside out. To better understand this, imagine the following scenario. Think of contact treatment like putting a raincoat on a tree. As long as it's intact and properly fitted, the tree stays dry. But the moment a hole appears or a strong gust of wind lifts a flap, that protection is compromised. Now, a systemic treatment is like giving the tree a vaccination against disease. The active ingredient circulates within the tree itself, actively seeking out and destroying the pathogen, no matter where it's hiding. You might spray just one side of a branch, but within a short time, the treatment spreads throughout the entire branch. It reaches every bud, penetrates every tiny crack in the bark, places you could never reach with a sprayer jet. It works from the inside, methodically eliminating the fungus that's hidden away for winter. This isn't just a superficial cleanup, it's genuine systemic therapy for your garden. It's precisely this systemic action that makes these products virtually unaffected by rain. This is one of their major benefits, especially during the unpredictable autumn weather. If a contact product, like copper sulfate, gets washed away by the first heavy downpour just a few hours after application, all your hard work goes to waste. You'd have to wait for good weather and reapply. With a systemic fungicide, it's a completely different story. It only needs a few hours, typically 2 to 4, depending on the product and air temperature, to be absorbed into the plant's tissues. Once it's absorbed, it's in. No amount of rain can affect it. It's safely protected by the plant itself and continues its work regardless of weather conditions. This gives you the freedom and confidence that your treatment truly worked and your time and money weren't wasted. So, what are these miracle solutions we're talking about? Let's move from theory to practice. Of course, I won't name specific brands to avoid sounding like an advertisement, but I will tell you the active ingredients. These are precisely what you should be looking for when you're at the garden centre. Specifically, these include difenoconazole, tebuconazole, cyprodonyl, and penconazole. They're often combined to boost their effectiveness and widen their range of action. You'll easily find products containing these substances under well-known brand names like Score, Ryoc, Horus, Topaz, and many others. Simply check the label on the package. The main takeaway is this: always look for the phrase systemic fungicide and confirm the active ingredient. These modern molecules are precisely the weapon that allows us to elevate our garden's protection to an entirely new level. Now, let's talk about the potency I liken to copper sulfate. Why did I say it's 100 times stronger? Of course, that's a figure of speech, but it truly captures the essence. It all comes down to concentration and efficacy. When preparing a working solution of copper sulfate for a dormant season spray, you typically use 300 grams of the product per 10 litres of water. 300 grams! That's quite a substantial package, but here's the crucial point. To prepare the same volume of a working solution using a modern systemic fungicide, you'll only need between 2 and 5 millilitres of the concentrate. Just consider this stark contrast. 300 grams versus a mere 2 millilitres. It's like comparing the weight of a sledgehammer to a surgeon's scalpel. A systemic product is a high-precision tool, effective in minuscule amounts, yet its efficacy against specific pathogens is incomparably superior to that of a crude contact agent, which merely burns everything on the surface. And this brings us to another significant advantage. Systemic fungicides, as I've mentioned, are like a sniper rifle compared to carpet bombing. Copper sulfate, especially in high concentrations, doesn't just kill harmful fungi, it also eliminates a multitude of beneficial microorganisms living on the bark. It doesn't distinguish between friend and foe. Modern treatments, however, act much more selectively. Their molecules are specifically designed to target the life processes of phytopathogenic fungi, blocking their growth and development. They are far less detrimental to beneficial microflora. It's a more sophisticated and intelligent approach. We're not scorching the earth on the bark surface, but rather precisely eliminating a specific enemy while preserving the natural biological balance. This is especially crucial for the tree's long-term health. But perhaps the most critical factor is the duration of its protective action. A contact fungicide, for instance, only works as long as it remains on the surface. Once rain washes it away, wind blows it off, or the bark grows and the protective film cracks, its job is done. A systemic fungicide, however, works from within the plant, offering protection for a significantly longer period. Typically, this period ranges from 2 to 4 weeks. This means the treatment not only eradicates fungi that have already settled in for the winter, but also continues to safeguard the tree for some time after application. Furthermore, a portion of the active ingredient remains in the plant tissues, ready to confront the spring awakening of pathogens fully prepared. So, when fungal spores attempt to germinate and infect young leaves in the spring, they'll be met with an unwelcome surprise: the fungicide already circulating within the plant's sap. In essence, we're not just creating a temporary barrier, but establishing a long-lasting internal immunity for the plant. A crucial question often arises: when exactly should this treatment be applied for maximum effectiveness? The ideal window is after leaf fall, once the trees have completely shed their foliage. Why is this important? Firstly, with no leaves obstructing the view, you can much more thoroughly treat the trunk and all branches, ensuring the solution penetrates every surface. Secondly, at this stage, the tree is already preparing for dormancy, and its sap flow significantly slows down. This allows the product to distribute evenly and effectively set within the tree's tissues for the winter. However, there's one more critical condition. The application must occur before stable freezing temperatures set in. For systemic fungicides to work optimally, the air temperature should be 5 degrees Celsius or higher. At lower temperatures, their efficacy significantly diminishes as the vital life processes in both the plant and the target fungi practically cease. Therefore, closely monitor the weather forecast and choose a dry, wind-free day in late autumn. Even when working with microdoses of this product, safety protocols are absolutely essential. We're dealing with potent chemicals, and neglecting protective measures is simply not an option. This isn't just a formality, it's about safeguarding your health. Always use personal protective equipment, or PPE. What does that include? First, a respirator to protect your airways from fine aerosol droplets. Second, safety glasses to prevent any solution from splashing into your eyes. And third, rubber gloves to protect your skin. It's also a good idea to wear long-sleeved clothing that you don't mind potentially getting dirty. Once you finish working, thoroughly wash your hands and face with soap and water, and be sure to rinse out the sprayer. Remember, your health is always the #1 priority. Adhering to proper and safe practices when using these modern products ensures both their effectiveness and your peace of mind. A common question among gardeners is whether they can mix different products. For instance, combining a fungicide with a pest control solution to tackle all issues in one go. The answer is yes. In most cases, it's not only possible, but often recommended. This kind of mixture is known as a tank mix. Many modern systemic fungicides are highly compatible with insecticides, products specifically designed to target insect pests. This allows a single application to eliminate not just overwintering disease spores, but also egg masses, pupae, and adult insects that have sought refuge in the bark for the winter. This is known as a comprehensive eradicating treatment. However, before mixing any products, always carefully read the instructions for both. Manufacturers typically indicate whether their product is compatible with other treatments. This is incredibly convenient, saving you a great deal of time and effort by performing one powerful, comprehensive treatment instead of 2 separate applications. All right, you might ask, we've covered diseases, but what about lichens? Iron sulfate seems so effective at getting rid of them. Here, I want to dispel a common misconception. Lichens are not a tree disease. They are a symbiotic organism, a combination of a fungus and an alga. More importantly, lichens are actually an indicator of clean air. If you find them growing in your garden, that's great news. It means your local environment is healthy. They don't parasitize the tree or steal its nutrients. The only potential downside is that pests might sometimes hide beneath their growth. However, if you regularly apply systemic treatments as part of your overall garden care, this issue is easily managed. What's more, healthy, vigorous trees with good annual growth and smooth bark rarely have many lichens. They tend to favour older, weaker trees. So, by focusing on the overall health and vigour of your garden, you indirectly manage the lichen population as well. A strong tree will naturally keep their numbers in check. This modern approach completely redefines the philosophy and very essence of autumn garden care. We're shifting from brute force to a smart, strategic approach. We're no longer simply eradicating everything on the bark surface. Instead, we administer targeted therapy. We treat the garden, addressing existing, hidden infections, and simultaneously immunize it, proactively guarding against future spring threats. This is about staying ahead of the curve. We don't wait for diseases to manifest in spring, only to heroically battle them later. Instead, we nip problems in the bud during the fall, ensuring our garden enters its winter dormancy with the healthiest and safest conditions possible. This represents a fundamental shift from a reactive approach, simply responding to problems, to a proactive one, where we prevent them from occurring in the first place. What's the ultimate advantage of this approach? It's a completely fresh start come springtime. Imagine the difference. In one scenario, after a basic copper sulfate treatment, the tree enters winter still burdened with, say, 50% of its disease load. Come spring, as the tree's buds awaken, all those dormant pathogens also spring back to life. The tree is then forced to divert its precious energy, not just into growing vigorous shoots and forming blossoms, but also into battling diseases that attack it from the very first day. In the other scenario, with a comprehensive systemic treatment, the tree goes into winter virtually free of major diseases. It rests peacefully, and then in spring, it channels all its accumulated energy solely into development, into robust growth, abundant flowering, and consequently, the formation of a high-quality, bountiful harvest. We remove the primary limiting factor from its path, empowering it to realise its full potential, 100%. And finally, let's look at this from a practical perspective. Ultimately, by using modern systemic treatments, you save in multiple ways. First, you save valuable time. A single, high-quality autumn application often eliminates the need for multiple spring and summer sprayings. Second, you save money. Yes, a small vial of systemic fungicide might have a higher upfront cost than a packet of traditional copper sulfate. But when you consider its minimal dosage and the numerous treatments it replaces, the long-term savings are undeniable. But most importantly, you achieve an incomparably better result. You'll see the proof with your own eyes next spring. Pristine, healthy, spot-free foliage. And come summer and autumn, you'll enjoy a beautiful, unblemished harvest that won't rot on the branches and stores exceptionally well. This is an investment in your garden's health that pays off handsomely, many times over. So, what's the real game changer here? Why was I so confident in saying Bordeaux mixture is a thing of the past? It's because we've shifted from brute force to smart technology. That claim of 100 times stronger isn't about dousing your trees with something more toxic, it's about efficiency. A single small ampule of a modern systemic treatment, working from the inside, achieves results that a full kilogram of copper sulfate, acting only on the surface, simply cannot match. Old methods are like trying to lock a fortress from the outside, leaving the enemy free within its walls. New treatments destroy that enemy from the inside, making the fortress itself impregnable. We're no longer just creating the illusion of protection. We're giving the plant true, long-lasting immunity. That's the revolution. To sum up, full garden treatment isn't just a tradition. It's a crucial horticultural practice. And by using modern systemic fungicides instead of outdated contact ones, you're taking a huge step towards a healthier, more abundant harvest. You're not working harder, you're working smarter. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you learned something new and useful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes. Now, a question for you. What products do you use to treat your garden in the fall? Are you still trusting the old guard, or have you already switched to something modern? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's discuss.